Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We'll rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched The Pit and the Pendulum.
Nikki.
And this is John, and thank you for joining us on 1991 Movie Rewind. The Pit and the Pendulum takes place in Toledo, Spain in the year 1492. The Spanish Inquisition has a stronghold on the town, led by the monk Torquemada, played by Lance Henriksen. While a woman is being punished for being a witch, bakers Maria and Antonio attempt to stop the punishment. Maria is arrested on the spot for being a witch herself, who may have put Torquemada under her spell. Screenplay by Dennis Paoli, directed by Stuart Gordon, and released on May 31st, 1991. Have you seen The Pit and the Pendulum before?
No, I have not.
No, me either. I think this may be my first full moon entertainment movie that I can think of.
Okay.
Do you know about Full Moon?
No.
Okay. They are... I think it's probably important to note up front, they are a direct-to-video, company. Like, their niche, their purpose was to build movies that had decent enough quality, but sort of churn them out, right? So the point was like to have like low-budget stuff that kind of looked like it could have had a bigger budget than it did. But really focus on like horror and sci-fi and stuff like that, and cater to the direct-to-video market. This I think is one of the few examples where the movie actually hit theaters to some degree before it actually reached video. But most of their stuff was, on the shelves of Blockbuster or local video spot.
This gave me direct-to-video vibes.
Yes. Yeah, so they
and then I was like, how was this in the movie theater? Because...
I don't know, but
I don't know.
I honestly, I didn't write down the box office. I'm looking right now, and I realized
I know
that
it was
I did not
just
copy
random
those.
festivals.
Yeah, but it's on our list of movies that have box office performance. So I think it probably just had a couple limited
releases, and
maybe some
it made some money in the theaters, and then
a couple midnight showings in a couple cities for a few weeks or something, who knows,
right?
But yeah, technically it looks like a direct-to-video movie.
Oh yeah.
And the acting matches that quite well.
Mm-hmm.
You have a couple bigger names in there. Lance Henriksen, of course. The biggest one, who is the lead character, Torquemada. And he is extremely overacting this part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then you also have probably the other biggest name at this point is Mark Margolis, who plays Mendoza, who everyone now knows from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul as Tio Salamanca. His non-speaking part with the bell.
Yeah. I mean, he does have speaking in Better Call Saul because he's pre-bell.
Yeah, pre-bell.
But I don't know. This is a total not have anything to do with the movie or anything. But one of my favorite Twitter accounts was someone made a.
The Tio Salamanca.
The Tio Salamanca, like his handle or Twitter handle, and it's just ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, just him dinging in response to other people's tweets.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
But he's in this as Mendoza, basically like the sort of, not exactly the right-hand man of Torquemada, but like one of the key henchmen.
He was kind of like Igor that's what he was giving me, like...
Right.
Like Frankenstein Igor vibes.
Yeah, he was sort of like the lead punishment person, but he wasn't like the right-hand man of Torquemada. That was a guy named Francisco, played by Jeffrey Combs, who's in a ton of Full Moon stuff and a lot of Stuart Gordon's movies. And we'll see him a bunch in 1991, so I won't really talk about him here. Acting is over the top. The set pieces are one step above like a Broadway stage play, right? You know, because they're pretty basic, but they have, you know, a little bit of extra decoration because they don't have to be moved around the stage as if it were like a off-Broadway play or something. But certainly not super polished. And then you have a story that is as basic as all get out.
Yeah.
And you also have this company that's became known. I mean, this is one of their earlier movies, I guess. It became known for, you know, producing horror and whatever. And it doesn't really go all out with the gore and the blood and the horror aspect. It's more... It's not even really psychological terror either.
It's like some weird fantasy... Oh...
It's like weird Spanish Inquisition fanfic, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like historical fiction. Yeah, historical fanfic.
Yeah. Based off an Edgar Allen Poe
extremely loosely
story.
based, because I didn't read the short story, but I read like a Cliff's Notes of the short story, and it's extremely loosely based.
Like, they got the title.
Yeah,
they probably roughly
used
got the
a
time
pit
period.
and they used a pendulum. So they're like, let's just call it the pit and the pendulum.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
And that came in later. Like, the pit and the pendulum is basically like the climax of the movie.
Yeah. And
up until that point, it's like a lot of standard torture stuff that you would typically see in these types of movies, where people are like hung or, you know, choked out or put into cells and cut and whipped.
this
put
is
on the
probably
rack.
like because the cover of the VHS or whatever, the DVD or whatever, is very Cinemax looking. I don't know, because it's kind of like you see the Torquemada guy just sitting on like a throne. You see kind of like that pendulum, the blade, and then you have a naked woman, but you only see her backside.
Okay.
So it's just very...
Yeah, it gives you the hint of what you're sort of getting into.
Yeah.
It pretty well encapsulates what you're after. And the women characters in this obviously are not treated well at all.
No.
Which I'm sure is time period accurate.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Especially considering the subject matter and
the
accusations
Spanish
of witches.
Inquisition, and then the whole... Yeah, the witches, this is, you know...
But yeah, like even her own husband is very gropey in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's a weird little thing. Like, they said that they've known each other for less than a year and they're already married and
Well,
bakers, but yeah,
who knows the time? I mean...
I just thought it was kind of weird.
They probably just met up and were like, hey, let's get married. They don't talk about their history at all.
Yeah, they're just like,
'cause it makes you
like
think,
I like you, you like me, let's just
get married and that's
so
it.
we can do each other.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she's uber religious.
I mean, that could have been it. She's like, I will not have sex until I'm married. So he's probably like, okay, let's get married.
Yeah. Could be. They don't dive
Because she
into that
is
too much.
super... And then during that time, you are forced to be Catholic.
And yeah, so she's very much devout.
Yeah.
Which is why she's, you know, so thrown for a loop when she's accused of being a witch. So the way that kind of happens, we alluded to it in the summary paragraph, is that there is some sort of a public execution / punishment happening for someone who was confirmed to be a witch.
Yes.
By the church. And that woman, well, actually, a little bit before that, Torquemada exhumes a body at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, this confused me immediately.
Yeah. So he exhumes the body of a dead person, Alfonso de Alba Molina, I wrote it down, and accuses the dead of heresy as a way to punish his descendants. So basically he's accusing this person who's already dead and already a skeleton of crimes against the church And the punishment for that is that the church can now steal money from the family and punish the wife and the family.
Yeah.
And so that the public execution is basically for the wife, but the dead person is getting like whipped as well. Like they,
and the family's
assign,
watching.
Like, lashes, and they have been like his skull is like crushed to dust.
That's where I was like, why are you already punishing the person that's already dead? Like, I get that it's punishing the family because the family's watching.
Yeah, it's just like a stupid workaround. But I mean that's what the Spanish Inquisition is about, right? Like it's the church doing whatever it wants,
right?
In the interest of justice.
By the Pope's orders, yes.
But they're just all powerful, and they just make up the rules, and you have to go with it. Otherwise, you're gonna get punished too.
Oh yeah.
So I mean that's really all it is them abusing power. So yeah, the wife, the Contessa Molina, is played by the director's wife, Carolyn Purdy Gordon. And she's in a bunch of her husband's films and usually gets killed in them.
Okay.
Like that's some sort of like thing that they do. So she's
That's nice.
She's getting choked out by the executioner, which is weird because like the executioner puts her on his back and like choking her with the rope, and like he's sort of like walking around the square with it. Remember that?
Yeah, until she dies.
She dies, and then they hang her, or maybe just until she becomes unconscious. I don't know. But it's just a weird way to do it.
And then hang her just to make sure that she's fully dead.
Yeah, it's just a weird way to do it. And so yeah, Maria.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was a torturing, not device, but torturing way back then. I have no idea.
It could have been technique. Who knows?
Who knows?
But Maria and Antonio are there in the square because they were trying to sell their bread to the crowd because they really need to sell their bread to make a living, and that's where the crowd is. And then they get swooped up and sort of pushed with the rest of the onlookers, and they don't want to be there, and they try to stop it, and then they're accused of being enemies of the church as well. Torquemada comes down and like grabs Maria's hand, and he has some sort of weird vision thing.
Yeah.
While the body is burning behind him, and she's a witch. So
yeah, she just speaks up, and you can't
do that.
You can't do that, or you're a witch.
And Torquemada has like a big old crush or something, and he's ashamed of it, and then he throws her in a cell.
Yeah, he's like, I am attracted to this woman, and it's her fault because I'm attracted to her. She's seducing me.
Yes, she's putting her
spell.
spell.
Yes, so she is a witch.
She's manipulating me.
Yeah.
So, and then they think they killed the husband. They knocked him unconscious and leave him there, and then he wakes up later and then tries to sneak into the jail to rescue his wife. Which doesn't go well. He's caught immediately because the guard who helped sneak him in turns him in.
Yeah.
That was kind of a weird scene, like where he's like that guard who's like taking the bribe. I don't know. It just like everyone else is trying to be sort of like old English, like like being more, period like in their delivery, and this guy's like, yeah, give me $1, man. Like I don't know. I like his delivery was much more modern and is kind of off-putting.
Yeah.
By the way, that actor Stephen Lee, who played Gomez, he was in one episode of Roseanne in 1991. And then in 1994, he went on to play Tom Arnold in the TV movie Roseanne and Tom Behind the Scenes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was odd. So, if you've ever seen that TV movie, the guy who played Tom Arnold was that guy. So yeah, so they're both in jail, basically. And while Maria is in her cell, she meets a quote-unquote real witch named Esmeralda.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess she's a real witch?
I mean, they say that she is a doula.
Okay.
Or a midwife.
Yeah, she was a midwife.
They don't really say the word doula. And apparently you can't be a midwife. You can't, unless you're a doctor, you cannot deliver babies. That's what I'm assuming. because she's using like, you know, herbs and natural birth methods. Mm-hmm. And apparently you cannot be doing that, so they call her a witch. But she's like, yeah, I'm a witch.
Yeah.
She's even confessing like every single day. You're like, yep, I'm a witch.
Mm-hmm.
So
and she kind of shows off her powers in a couple different scenes as well.
Yeah.
For the sake of the movie, I mean, sure, why not? You know, like let some mysticism happen. Because the wife does it a little bit too near the end. Maria does.
And she's played by this actress Frances Bay.
Frances Bay, yep.
And to me, she is known for the older woman that Seinfeld steals the marble rye from.
I think most people know the marble rye.
The marble rye.
If they know Seinfeld.
And she says, no, she's in a couple of Seinfeld episodes. So I was like, oh, the marble rye lady.
And if you don't know Seinfeld, you might know her as the grandma from Happy Gilmore. She's also been in a couple other things. And we'll see her in the 1991 movie Critters 3. As well. So yeah, she like helps Maria find her happy place while she's being tortured, and they find like, I don't know, they get transported into some sort of like field or grove with like a waterfall.
Yeah, it's like this fantasy type forest place, because they're dressed up in. This gave me like the movie Legend vibes, because it was very, you know, old-timey. Not old-timey, but just like fantasy. It's like medieval time forest, middle of nowhere, and then there's like, you know, a lot of mist and like pollen in the air. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I don't know, that was like some dream sequence.
That was probably the nicest was like set piece that the movie had.
But she kept on saying, don't look down.
Right.
Because if you look down,
she would realize that she wasn't actually
so
touching
like
the
they're
ground
floating.
Because, well, she was on the rack at the time.
Yeah, I know she's being tortured.
And so if you look down, then you see you're not touching ground, and you're going to be brought back to reality. So it's sort of like if you walk off a cliff like your Wile E. Coyote, don't look down, because as soon as you look down, you're going to see that the rock isn't there anymore, and you're going to fall. That same type of mentality.
But, during the time, she was like, just look at me, don't look down. And she was like, you know, in this mental state of, you know, contentment, I guess, while they're torturing her.
Letting the torture happen and not affect her at all. Yeah. But that was short.
Yeah.
Short-lived. But yeah, they definitely torture Maria in multiple ways. She's groped a lot in this movie. She's stripped naked a few times, a lot of leering and whatnot. And there's like some like random parts where Torquemada is like trying to pretend like he's a voice of reason, but not really. I mean, just because he wants her for himself, probably.
Yeah.
More so than he wants to stop that assault. The first half is pretty slow, and there's not much that happens that's very interesting. It's a lot of setup. Again, in a movie like this, I would probably expect to see like more gore, more, you know, ripped body parts or whatever, you know, because you're talking about torture. So like, let's see other people that
there are other people
other
in other
tortured, and let's see
cells,
some special effects.
But they only focus on her, Maria, and Esmeralda.
Yeah, and Antonio after he gets captured.
Yeah, but at the end, they free the people from these cells, but they don't show those people at all, except for that one time they were being freed, or when she's sort of being walked into her own cell.
Right. Yeah,
so they don't.
When Antonio's like trying to find her after he gets in.
Yeah, because there are a lot of other people, but yeah, they could show them being tortured as well.
Right. Or like, you know, when the witch is burned at the beginning, they don't show a whole lot of that stuff. Like, they show a couple shots of her, like, with her tongue out and, like, a little bit of special makeup on there. But, I mean, it could have gone further. But maybe it's just that... I'll say it this way. Like, I was expecting more of a trauma type of a situation than what I got. Mm-hmm. If you're comparing direct-to-video companies that deal with, like, horror and disturbing material... I was expecting more trauma, but maybe this is what Full maybe this is what full moon usually does, is try to make it seem more legitimate by not going overboard. So, but anyway, Antonio's there. He fights people with a ladle, and he does really well. So the baker has some moves, I guess, just whatever. But he's obviously trapped at some point as well. A whole bunch of random crap happens. I don't know if it's worth rehashing, to be honest with you. Nah. But at some point, Torquemada is alone with Maria, trying to get her to confess / take advantage of her, and then she uses like her witch powers to make a sword fall from the sky.
Well, it is established that she is a witch.
Esmeralda tells her that she's a witch.
Yes, because then now Maria is, using forces and stuff.
Yeah. Esmeralda
to
is
prevent herself from being killed. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Torquemada...
He says that he will free her husband if she will be with him, basically.
Yeah, but how... Yeah, and then that's when she was like, how can I be with you if you're a monk, you know? Mm-hmm. And she just, but she was like, I will do anything to free my husband. And he was like, okay, well, if I free him, you can't even see him.
Yeah, you will never see him again.
You will never be able to see him again. She's like, I will literally do anything for him to be free. And then, he's like seduced by her powers, quote.
And he like climbs on top of her.
This is
like this cross behind his head.
I was getting a little scared. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen, and I'm scared. But she like wills this sword atop of them to fall. It misses both of them, but he thinks it's a sign from God.
Yes, that he's not supposed to kill her.
Yeah.
And instead, he cuts out her tongue.
Yes, and he writes in this book saying that she's innocent.
Yes.
Because those are, I guess, whatever is written in this book is bond.
Yeah.
Because that's
it comes from him.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, later on in the movie, they're like, no, she shouldn't die because according to this book, she's innocent. Mm-hmm. And whatever's written in this book should be done by whatever this book says.
Yeah.
He cuts her tongue out, and she's pretty much left to die because she's bleeding out. Right. And then she does die, quote, die, but not really.
Yeah. So
she just passes out, and they think she's dead.
And she passes out. Esmeralda claims to put a spell on her that basically says, you're going to be dead for as long as you need to be. Uh-huh. They're all going to think that you're dead. They're going to take you out of this place.
Yeah.
And then you will wake up and become alive again.
Yes.
So it's like, it's sort of like a Romeo and Juliet type of situation where she drinks like enough poison to whatever, or was it Romeo? I forget which one does which first.
Well,
but, the
Juliet,
one who takes...
But she doesn't.
But, they think they're dead, but they're not dead.
Yes.
That's all I'm getting
at. Juliet doesn't, but then Romeo thinks she did.
Right.
She did. He drinks the poison. She wakes up. Well, reaches for him, and then when he realized... I don't know why we're talking...
Yeah, I'm just mean the first part. Like, where the person's, like, pretending to be dead, but the other person...
Yeah.
So, anyway, Antonio thinks that his wife is dead because he sees her getting carted out.
Yes.
But he's still determined to fight back, and he's able to...
Yeah, he wants to avenge her death.
Yeah, he's able to basically escape at some point. I kind of forget how... Oh, is it just... Does he escape at all before they put him into the pit?
I thought he didn't. I thought they just captured him.
Or like just kill people.
Well, he didn't go in the pit. They just all of a sudden he gets knocked out.
He just put in on top of the pit.
Yeah, he's on top of it, but there's that pendulum above.
Yeah, I thought he did something else to to break free, but maybe not. I think the only other thing of note that happens is that Esmeralda explodes.
That's near the end. So, I mean...
Well, it's before the pendulum, though.
Okay, yeah. So, on the way out, Esmeralda... I mean, Esmeralda is going out. She's going to be burned alive because she's a witch.
Yeah.
And she sees like a pile of gunpowder. She's like, oh, gunpowder. And she starts eating it.
Yeah.
This is like...
Just chowing down on
the
this
funny... it shouldn't be funny, but I was like, okay, we're going there.
There's a couple parts where it seems like it's meant to be funny.
Yeah, she was like, ooh, gunpowder. She starts eating it. And I was like, why? But then we find out why when she's burning at the stake. But, I mean, even before that, after Torquemada cuts off Maria's tongue, he starts to bleed from the mouth because he's lying and saying that she was killed.
That she was killed by Esmeralda.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's lying, and then, God is punishing him because he starts, like, bleeding from the tongue, too. Whenever he's talking or whatever, and he's like, God is my witness, like, strike upon me if I'm lying. And then, yes, he is lying, so he starts bleeding from the mouth.
And no one cares. Yeah.
But when they are burning Esmeralda at the stake, he starts bleeding from the mouth again, and that's when his sidekicks or whatever.
And I think that's also when Maria starts talking telepathically.
Yes.
Because she wakes up and she's alive, but she's in a coffin.
Yeah, she can't, talk. She's screaming.
Yeah, she's making noises and whatnot.
Yeah, she's grunting and screaming through this coffin, but, no one can hear her because it's like this big slab upon her.
Yeah, and I think at some point Antonio does escape because he's, like, at the coffin. No, that must be after the pendulum, then.
No, he comes to her while he's at... She telepathically starts saying his name while he's on the pendulum, isn't it?
And then after he beats up people, then he runs to the coffin?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going back and forth, but...
Yeah, it's tough to know because... yeah,
but, okay. And then... Anyway, so while Esmeralda is burning at the stake, Torquemada's mouth starts bleeding and he starts, like, choking on it or whatever. And then I thought his sidekicks are like, oh, we think he's lying, because they sort of go against him.
Yeah, at some point Mendoza has a change of heart. Mendoza's been punished by Torquemada as well. He'd been crucified and had stakes through his hands at some point as punishment for some other thing. And so the other part was that basically Torquemada at one point said that the next person to kill any of our prisoners is going to face God's wrath as well. It's going to be treated as like an enemy of the church. And then he himself was the one to kill Maria, quote unquote, which is why he blamed Esmeralda to shift the blame.
Yes,
but everyone
and that's
else
why
knew
she was being,
that it was
like,
actually
burnt
Torquemada.
But, while as Esmeralda is burning at the stake, that's when her entire body blows up, and that is the result of eating the gunpowder.
Yes.
And I was like, that...
Yeah, she's Wile E. Coyote. Right?
Yeah, that's when I started laughing, because I was like, that's not possible, but whatever.
Yeah, but like that's where like, okay, now the good stuff's happening, right? Like,
but that was at the very, very end, almost.
Yeah,
but that was the only like,
and like her shrapnel and
quote
her
good scene,
are like poking into people.
Yeah, and then all these like towns people are like, because and then you see like guts and stuff on their faces and whatever.
It's like, but finally,
that's when
something.
But
cool
Maria is telepathically speaking. But at this point, Antonio is tied,
strapped to the floor with the pendulum swinging above.
Yeah.
And then they also release rats. And the way he's able to escape is really dumb, and I don't know if that's anything that works either. There's a bunch of rats eating him on the floor. One of the rats gets cut in half by the pendulum because it's so close and it's like
right because it's right on his. They're all kind of up and down his torso.
Yeah,
and
they're
the
there to
pendulum
eat
is
him.
yeah the pendulum is low enough where it's like slicing the rats.
Yeah, so he grabs half a rat and then just squeezes it to let all the blood juice come out.
Yeah, so the other rats can go to where his hand is and chew off,
which is
the rope.
A thing, I guess. I didn't know that rats were attracted to rat blood as food, but that was the intention, I guess, is that he was supposed to, use the rat blood to attract the rats and let them eat that and also eat the rope at the same time.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the actual pit in the pendulum story.
Okay.
Because that part was the only part used from the pit in the pendulum.
Oh, that part was in Poe's
by
story.
Edgar Allan Poe, yes.
Interesting, okay.
It's a short story, and it's kind of like an unnamed man who is brought to trial before the Spanish, judges of the Spanish Inquisition. I'm just gonna fast forward. He is tied up. Like, everything is dark. He's in this dark prisoner cell. He doesn't know what's really going on. He's losing consciousness from being tortured. And he discovers that near the end of this story that he discovers that he is strapped to a frame on his back. He's facing a ceiling. It's all dark. He doesn't know what's going on.
So basically throughout the entire course of the story. He is strapped up at the pendulum. Okay.
And he realizes just by a small gleaming light that's illuminated that there's the swinging pendulum above him. So as this pendulum is coming down on him slowly, he was able to attract rats by smearing, I guess, other dead rat meat onto him. So the rats chew through the straps and he slips free before the pendulum slices him.
Okay.
This is the only part that is taken from that story. Was the rat thing.
Less believable is from the story.
Yeah, the thing that you found the least believable was from this story.
Well, I'd say there's other stuff that was
less
believable.
But
the witch exploding from gunpowder was not in the
original
story.
That's not.
And we haven't even talked about how we also watched the 1961 movie with Vincent Price. So yeah, basically Mendoza gets free by doing the rat trick, we'll call it. And he's able to fight off some of these guards. He pushes one of them into the pendulum and he gets cut in half, split directly in half. And you see, at one point you see his half body on the floor, going after Torquemada even.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. And yeah, basically he's able to push the coffin open and Maria is there, and that's when everyone revolts against Torquemada. But underneath the pendulum is the pit. There's a lever that Torquemada can control that opens up and shows a pit of spikes that's directly underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Surrounding that is a whole bunch of different vents that will shoot out fire from the floor, which comes into play after Antonio escapes. But yeah, they all gang up on Torquemada. He's there at the pit. Mendoza's up above, and he has that change of heart, and he pulls on the lever, and dude gets spiked in the face.
Yeah.
And they're let free. Mendoza and the other people let them free because the book says that Maria's innocent. She's alive again.
So she is free, but
and Antonio is whatever.
She's talking to Antonio telepathically, and she's saying that her tongue was ripped out basically, and she's like, I can't speak, but I could speak to you telepathically.
Yeah. Oh, before Torquemada meets his end, though, he's visited by all the people that he tortured, sort of.
Yeah, because they all kind of come back to life in a bit.
Including the skeleton.
Yeah, another funny part. That was the second funny part of the entire movie.
Oh, we forgot to mention, the skeleton is crushed into dust and then put into an hourglass. And so at the end of the movie, the hourglass breaks, and then the skeleton reforms like T2 style.
Right.
And, so that's how that ends.
Right.
I really wish the movie was as goofy and like
throughout,
yeah.
Not just that last 20 minutes. And it seems like, I don't know what it is, but all these movies, it's like the last 20 minutes things start happening.
Yeah. There's just too much build up and it's not interesting. It's the most basic dialogue and like overacting and stupid stuff, but oh well. In all honesty, the 1961 movie with Vincent Price, much, much better.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. Completely different story. Like, I can't think of anything else that was really the same other than there was a pit in Pendulum.
Right, because I was like, what? I mean, they're just using... I was like, are they just naming these movies The Pit and the Pendulum just because there's a literal pit and a literal pendulum?
Yeah, just
because
name recognition.
The 1961 movie, was much better just plot-wise and then also just acting-wise.
Yes. Yeah, Vincent Price is awesome in that. He kind of plays a dual role. He's like this grieving widower. I don't know the exact term. Of his wife who may have died, may not have died. And then the brother comes to find out what happened to her, and there's like secrets and intrigue, and it's Roger Corman that directed that one. You can definitely see the difference in how Corman and Gordon handled their schlock. And Corman is much more stylized and interested. So watch that one for sure.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
We watched it on YouTube.
It was on YouTube. This one is, well, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, that's the plot. That's how it is, and Lance Henriksen is hamming it up all the live long day. Anything else like that you gleaned from the Poe story that you wish was in the movies?
I mean, the Poe story sounds very interesting, but I wouldn't know how they would go about that because it just seems like this man stuck in a very dark room until he finds out that he's in this pit.
It's a lot of like inner self-reflection and turmoil.
It's kind of,
yeah, that would
and
be
I
tough to
haven't really read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, so I haven't read that.
Yeah.
And from reading about this 1991 movie, apparently it was loosely based off, The Pit and the Pendulum, but also another Poe story called The Cask of Amontillado.
Okay.
But that is also just very loosely based because that story is just kind of like a revenge story. It's like someone revenging someone else's death. So I can see that because the husband is revenging his wife's, quote, death.
Sure. In terms of awards for this specific movie, nothing worth noting. I will say, though, that on the same year, Lance Henriksen was awarded the Fangoria Horror Hall of Fame Award in 1991, and that was mostly because of his past work on movies like Aliens, Terminator, Pumpkinhead, Piranha 2, stuff like that he had been in before this. He's also done like other major movies like Dog Day Afternoon and Right Stuff. A lot of people will probably know him from the TV series Millennium, which was the Chris Carter's follow-up to X-Files. He had 3 Golden Globe nominations for that role. Stuart Gordon, who directed this movie, also has the Fangoria Horror Hall of Fame Award from 1997 because he is the director of a lot of stuff like Reanimator and Robot Jocks and Dolls and From Beyond, like a lot of like Lovecraftian things, and he has a lot of relationship with the Full Moon people. He also co-founded the Organic Theater in Chicago. So this is, like the second time in like 3 weeks that we've talked about
Someone
a co-founder of a theater in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they did Bleacher Bums, which was a play, and then it became like a TV movie or Broadway show or whatever it was. Basically about the Chicago Cubs fans, Bleacher Bums. He also was the creator of a play called ER, which then later became the comedy series ER, starring Elliot Gould.
Okay.
Which I remember watching on like reruns on Lifetime. And George Clooney is also in that ER. That was before the dramatic one that came out a little bit later. The other weird thing about Stuart Gordon is he is also the person who helped develop the story for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So he did all of this horror stuff, and then he has Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on the side, and he's still... his estate is now getting residuals from all that stuff. Because he passed. Dennis Paoli, who is the writer of this, did a whole bunch of Stuart Gordon's movies. He was the writer for that, for virtually all of his movies. But he also did Ghoulies 2 and stuff like that, too. We talked about most of the actors, didn't we?
Yeah.
Mark Margolis, like we said, Breaking Bad. I think where I probably first knew of him was from the movie Pi.
Okay.
Because he's in like pretty much all of Darren Aronofsky's movies, but like Pi, he's like the older man who's like the mentor and the go teacher.
Okay.
So, but he's also in Oz.
Yes.
and we recently saw him in Christmas Evil. Do you remember that movie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, from 1990, where he plays Man Number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, is that?
Yep.
Him?
He's
And
in
it is.
a lot of shit movies before he...
Oh, yeah. He paid his dues.
Got big. I don't know.
Yeah. A couple other cast members. We talked about Antonio a lot, but we didn't mention him by name. It's Jonathan Fuller. He hasn't been in a whole lot of stuff that's worthwhile, in my personal opinion. But he plays the lead actor in a movie called Arcade, which I have on VHS. It's not 1991. Castle Freak, Campfire Tales, Blood Fist, 6, Ground Zero. So he's in that type of stuff. I also want to mention Oliver Reed, who played the Cardinal. We didn't talk about his scene at all. At one point, a cardinal comes in to try to stop the torturing from happening, because supposedly the Pope was against it and wanted to stop it. Mm-hmm. But Torquemada abused the power and killed the cardinal, buried him alive behind the wall. Evidently, that's not true to life. The Pope never cared. But Oliver Reed... I wanted to mention him. He's actually a very famous actor. We'll see him again in 1991's Prisoner of Honor. He got a BAFTA nomination for his role as Proximo in Gladiator, where he died in the middle of production of that movie, but he still got a BAFTA nomination. But the reason I want to mention him is that he is supposedly starred in the first film to say fuck, which is a movie called I'll Never Forget What's His Name from 1967. And he's also in the first film to feature male nudity, like full frontal, which is a movie called Women in Love from 1969. I don't know how true those things are, but I thought it was kind of interesting that he had those quote-unquote milestones to his name. Mm-hmm. So, little piece of film history there for you. Last person I want to talk about, I want to give a trigger warning for suicide. We're going to talk about Maria Rona de Ricci. This was her last role. She only has 4 credits to her name. The movies Rage and Glory, The Penitent, if I wrote that down right, The Penitent, and also a Fleetwood Mac video, As Long As You Follow is the name of that song. That's it. She supposedly published a memoir in 2020 called Truth and Dare, a Memoir, and then committed suicide very shortly after that was published. And that memoir, I think, outlines a lot of her difficulties, not only in the entertainment industry. Apparently she and Stuart Gordon had troubles on the set of this film. Wow. She didn't agree with some of the ways some of the rehearsals were handled, is the little tidbits that I was able to glean from this. And then yeah, just other stuff that happened in her life, unfortunately, led to major depression. I guess we're on to true crime and pop culture. Maybe we'll try to lighten it up a little bit. I don't know.
I couldn't find... So this movie was released a couple weeks after we did Europa. So I couldn't find too much.
Yeah, too much
that
new
was
stuff,
different
yeah.
or new. And I did... I always try to look up... But you did all the looking up of this cast, and I didn't find anything that horrible that these people did.
Right.
So I have nothing true crimey, but I'm just gonna move on to music, and I'm gonna talk about some albums that were released May of 1991, because especially around this movie was released. The first one was Seal's debut album, May 24th, 1991, and that had, the single Crazy. So the first Seal
I thought that was
album.
later. I thought that was like 94, 95 when he came out with most of his stuff. But...
No, I mean, a few years later, yeah, I thought this was funny. His second album was also called Seal, but people called it Seal 2. I think I vaguely remember that. But yeah, his first album, May 24th, 1991. And these two other albums were released May 28th, 1991. The first being Smashing Pumpkins' first studio album, Gish.
Okay.
And the second album released on that day, May 28th, was NWA's, their second and final album as a group. And before they, all disbanded and started their own solo careers.
Yeah.
That was also the first hardcore rap album to reach number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts.
I've actually never listened to the second NWA album.
I don't know if I've listened to all of it. I just know some songs.
Yeah, I don't know much of it. I know, like, Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, that's the first.
Very well. I listened to that a ton, but I never got into the second album.
I probably know 2 or 3 songs on the second one. And for the Billboard Top 100, so, like, for the top songs, they were pretty much similar from what I did for Europa, which I did the top 5 singles, and those kind of changed after 2 weeks. So I'm just going to do the top 5 singles as of June 1st, 1991. The first one, the top song was I Don't Wanna Cry by Mariah Carey. Number 2 was More Than Words by Extreme. Number 3 was I Wanna Sex You Up by Color Me Bad. Number 4 was Love Is a Wonderful Thing by Michael Bolton. And number 5 was Rush Rush by Paul Abdul. And
a couple that were number ones in future past episodes.
It's just funny, from like 2 weeks prior during Europa, all of those dropped to 6 to 10. So the top 5 that was 2 weeks before are now 6 to 10. So all of these 1 through 5 for now was probably just released within the past couple of weeks. Going on to TV, I also looked up what was on May 31st, 1991, and it was a typical TGIF lineup.
Stuff we've all talked about.
So we've talked about that so many times, and then I started looking up other stuff, and that's when we went on YouTube and decided to see what was released. We just typed in the day, and then we found a couple game shows.
Yeah, and we watched one of them.
Which was To Tell the Truth, which was the final episode for that
iteration.
Yeah, for that.
Way to say.
Iteration, because To Tell the Truth has been off and on since the 50s.
Yes.
And it's currently back on with Anthony Anderson as the host.
Yeah, primetime ABC, part of their...
So this was the last episode as of 1991, where Alex Trebek was the host.
What did we see? It lasted 11 episodes total?
Yeah, it was only it was for a year. It was 1992, 1991. So it was just that 1 year, 11 episodes.
Yeah, not even a full half season worth.
Yeah. But yeah, and if you just type in May 31st, 1991, it appears.
Yep.
A panel show where they have 4 celebrity panelists or judges and then 3 random contestants. The judges have to guess if the contestants are telling the truth.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
Who they say they are.
Yeah, there's 3 of them who are all pretending to be the same person. Yeah. They have to guess who the real one is and who the imposters are.
The celebrities ask questions to these 3 contestants, and then after asking a couple questions each, they pick who the real person is that they say they are. And if the contestant fools them or tricks them, they get a lot of money. Yeah. They get a few $1,000s or something
like that. Yeah. I don't know what they said specifically, but yes. Yeah. Probably a more modern example for people of our generation, if you're a Nickelodeon fan, is Figure It Out is a very similar show. Yeah. So, just no slime.
Yeah, no slime in this one, yeah. So the 4 celebrities, quote unquote, we were like, who are these people? The 4 celebrities that were on this episode were Ron Mazak,
Murder, She Wrote.
Okay, yeah. All of these, they were actors or actresses they were very well known in the 50s and 60s.
For the most part, yeah. A lot of these people were known for doing game show stuff. So,
and Ron Mazak and Mother Love, who we looked up, and she was more of a radio personality, and then later became a comedian, and then later a writer, and then later her own talk show.
Yeah,
host.
This is her first screen credit.
Yeah.
So she been on the radio.
So she was on the radio prior to being on this.
Yeah.
And then a man named Orson Bean, who I just briefly looked up, and he was on the Johnny Carson show a lot, or the Tonight Show, I should.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's really mostly known for game show appearances. He'd done a ton of Match Game, a ton of To Tell the Truth in past iterations. His probably biggest screen credit that I can find is Anatomy of a Murder from the late 50s. And then from there he just kind of became a guest.
Yep.
And random host, and just was famous for being famous.
Yeah, and the 4th celebrity judge was a woman named Kitty Carlisle, who was an actress.
Yes, and she was also, she's the person who's most synonymous with To Tell the Truth. So if you talk about the Match Game from the 70s, people are going to talk about Gene Rayburn or Charles Nelson Riley. When you say To Tell the Truth, people are going to associate it with Kitty Carlisle.
Okay.
And she's been with basically every single iteration since the mid-50s, and she's been the standard. She's the Joan Rivers of Hollywood Squares, but for To Tell the Truth.
Yes. And the first segment was 3. It starts off with 3 men dressed up as apes. They're in ape costumes, and they all say, "I'm Dan McLeod, and I am in the movie Trading Spaces." They all say it at this, one after the other.
Yeah. Well, basically, Alex Trebek gives a bio.
Yeah.
It's my name is Don McLeod, and Trebek is giving a bio and a list of facts that they supposedly do.
Yeah. And, the celebrities ask him a series of questions. What was it like working on Trading Spaces with,
Trading places, right?
Trading places. I always think of Trading Spaces.
Yeah, there were no gorillas in the TLC
in the
show.
HGTV TLC. Yeah, Trading Places. And then they were like, how was it working with Steve Martin in, The Man with Two Brains, asking them, about other acting credits, and then also asking them stuff about apes, and then questions about who was the woman that, who studied gorillas, and couple of them. Yeah, no one got it. They were like, So, they ask him those types of questions. And then the real Dan McLeod stands up. And then he talks about how he's in a couple other movies. And then he gives this thing where he says he's looking for his biological mother.
Yeah.
And that's when I Googled this guy. I was like, did he find his mom? But I couldn't find if he found his mom. But I did find like a whole thing of not all the movies that he's been in, but not every single one. But he's also like on this horror fandom site because he plays a lot of monsters. And I guess he's most known for playing a werewolf in The Howling.
Okay.
And
So does that mean he's going to be in Howling 6?
I mean, he's still alive.
I mean, Howling 6 is a 1991 movie.
I did not see that, but in the show, they do ask him about, he is in Naked Gun 2.5, and they ask him about his role in that, and he just says that Leslie Nielsen drives into a zoo, and he comes out of the zoo, and he's dressed up, so he's the gorilla that escapes the zoo. But then I also found out that he played the Quasimodo character in Naked Gun 2.5.
So he has like a dual role type of a thing, yeah. I think we saw a screenshot, right? And it looked like he was, if I remember the joke, is like, they're asking for someone to, lower their back so they could write something.
Yeah, and it's Quasimodo.
Yes, Quasimodo.
And he's most known for playing gorillas in monsters, and he's famous for being in the movie Total Recall.
Okay.
He was in Witches of Eastwick.
As a gorilla?
No,
Okay.
In Witches of Eastwick, he played. We watched this recently.
Yeah.
He plays when Jack Nicholson turns into the demon thing. When he peers through the window. That's this guy.
Oh, interesting.
And obviously Trading Places, not Spaces. And he's also in the 1991 movie Hook. He plays the Shadow.
Okay. I don't remember Hook well enough to know what the Shadow is, so it'll be a nice surprise
to
see him again.
Peter Pan, even the movie Peter Pan, do you know with his shadow? You know how his shadow did his own thing?
I kind of don't like the story of Peter Pan, so I don't
know. I mean, I know it I know it really well, but
so
he plays Peter Pan. Ranking
for that.
Peter Pan's shadow. But
so he's basically like this era's Andy Serkis.
Yes, like he walked so Andy Serkis can run, basically. I don't know. That's what I was looking up a lot of his credits. He plays a gorilla a lot, which I thought was, even to this day, because I saw something, he was a gorilla in something in
Planet of the Apes movies with Serkis?
No, he wasn't.
Weird.
No.
Okay. Not even like a tech advisor. Well, maybe.
Maybe. I didn't see that. But
not an acting role. Maybe he did some tech advice.
He was in an episode of The New Addams Family. Oh. That was in the 90s.
That was a thing.
Yep. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then, there were two other segments. There was another one finding like a teacher.
Mm-hmm. A teacher for like an experimental school.
Yeah, and then another one was trying to find the director of the show.
Yeah, it was this guy named Mr. X, and he was either the director of the show or he wrote the song New York, New York, and you had to guess which one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, watch the episode to find out. We won't tell.
Right.
Not like it matters. But it was interesting to see Trebek in something else besides Jeopardy and Classic Concentration, which was a much more short-lived show than we had.
Yeah, we watched that.
We watch it like nightly on Pluto.
We just found out there's only 40 episodes. I'm like, I think we've seen them all.
Yeah, we've probably seen every one now.
So we know all the classic concentration puzzles.
Yep. On to rankings and ratings then. So on your 1 to 5 star scale, where would you put The Pit and the Pendulum?
I mean, I'm giving this movie a 1.
Okay. I think that's fair. Yeah, on my 0 to 4 star scale, I think it's a 1 as well. Like it wasn't the worst thing ever, but definitely didn't have much polish.
I was thinking, like, this is... In the beginning, I was like, this is starting off as worse than Kiss Before Dying. But I think I would watch this again just for the laughs.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, like, it's goofy fun. Like, if you can get a crowd together that's, like...
To watch the goofiness
into these types of
near
movies
the end.
that Full Moon is really known for, like, then, yes, it's worth watching again for that. If you out there want to watch The Pit and the Pendulum, as of this recording in July 2021, it's available on Tubi, Pluto TV, digital rental, VHS, DVD. Check your local listings. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention that Tubi also has a 20 or 30 minute behind the scenes making of documentary thing, which we did not get around to watching before this episode, but it's there as well if you want to watch that. As for the podcast, you can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. It does help us out a lot. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind, or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of 800 plus movies, along with show notes and more. Next week, we're going to go in the opposite direction. We're going to watch Alfonso Cuarón's first feature movie, Solo con tu pareja. It's available on Prime, digital purchase, not rental, and DVD. We'll see you then.
Thanks.